Welcome to the show. I'm Doug Johnson, and this is The Business of Life. During each show, we meet with a local personality who is willing to share with us their secrets for success. Today's guest is JimMirgliotta. Many of us know him in the community. He is an entrepreneur, a business person, a community activist, and an all-around great guy. Jim,
wow,
welcome
thank
to
you
the
for
show.
all those nice things. I didn't expect all of that, really.
Well, once in a while.
You're a nice
we
guy
have to
too,
do
by
that.
the way.
Well, thank you. Jim, you and I have known each other for about 40 years, and it's hard to believe that either one of us is that old.
That's for sure.
But
right. It has been that long.
You're looking great.
Well, thank you. I feel good.
Good.
I really do. I'm very blessed.
Well, and you keep active. And I know you
try.
have always kept active for as long as we've known one another. So tell us what you do and how you got there. What is your backstory?
Wow. You're asking me a little bit about my background and how I got into business, or?
Right.
Well,
and in life.
In life.
Sure.
You know, one, I think I would start by saying I had a great mother and father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, really taught me the values of life and to be upfront and straightforward with everybody. Unfortunately, my father was not an educated person. Came to this country from Sicily. He was only 10 years old. Was never in a school. Never educated. My mother had about the equivalent of about a third grade education, but she certainly knew the Bible from one end to the other. And so a lot of my get up and go comes from her. Okay, how did it all start? Well, it started the day I got expelled from high school. I know that doesn't sound like the appropriate way to start, and that's a story for a completely another day. And I won't make any excuses, but I didn't do anything wrong, but I was told I had to leave. And I got home that night, sat at the dinner table, and it happened to be in May after the spring break, and it was my last year at East Tech High School in Cleveland, and I just said to my father, I said, well, I'm all done with school, and I need a job. My plans while I was in school, I had a lot of art ability, and I loved to draw, I loved to paint, and I had an opportunity, I thought, with Halley's company in Cleveland to get on their staff, their commercial art department, and I also had an offer to go to Cooper School of Art here in Cleveland. All that fell apart the day I exited East Tech High School. So I had two brothers that were both iron workers, and so I said to my dad, think I could be an iron worker? And he says, well, you go next day. He says, you go to the Union Hall and get a permit. And he was on a project out in Brook Park, Ohio. The Ford Motor Company was just coming out of the ground. And so the next day, I'm out there as an apprentice iron worker. And my father was what you'd call a rebar guy, the reinforcing of concrete. I worked with Dad for about 6 months. I enjoyed the work, but I didn't want to be a rebar guy. I was watching the guys putting the structural steel up, and I thought, well, this is more what I would like to do. And so after 6 months, I left working with my dad, and I went with a company called American Bridge. They were probably the largest at that time steel erection company and fabricator in the United States. And I was fortunate enough to go onto a job out at East Lake, Ohio, as a powerhouse. And the superintendent there took a shine to me. We got along very well, and I was able to stay with, his name was Russ Bivens, and I was able to stay with Russ for 5 years in Cleveland. And Russ really taught me a lot about how to erect structural steel the right way and the safe way. It was a pleasure working with him, and when he finished up in Cleveland, his next job was the Mackinac Straits Bridge, which he did ask me to go with him on. And I thought that was a great opportunity until I came home and explained that to Betty. And Betty said, where's Mackinac? And I said, well, it's way up north in Michigan someplace. Are you going to be home on the weekends? And I thought about it, and I said, you know what, Betty, we're going to be working 5 10-hour days and an 8-hour Saturday. That's the plan to start with for 6 months. We'll be shut down in the winter because you can't work up there during the winter. I said, wow, no, I'm going to be kind of stuck up there. And Betty very nicely said, Jim, if you're going to go, pack everything you have because I'm not going to be here when you get back. And we're married, living in Twinsburg, 2 young kids, and it dawned on me, I can't go to Mackinac.
And I can picture Betty saying that to you.
So with that, I started working for local contractors, and with the training that I had with American Bridge, I was really good at what I did. I thought that I'll find a home with some local fabricator or erector, and it just didn't work out. We didn't have any guarantees back then. It was very difficult for me to make a 40-hour week, which I needed to support the family and our style of life, which was very modest, to say the least. And I decided that I could start my own business. And Betty and I talked about that. And, I had a pickup truck. I don't know if you remember in Twinsburg, there was a furniture place, Goldie, trying to think of their last name. But anyways, was the old, still there on Route 82, High and Goldie something or other. But anyways, he had an old 1948 Studebaker truck. And I had a 1950, at that time, a 1957 Chevrolet truck that was pretty nice. He wanted that truck. We switched trucks, and he gave me some money, and I went and bought a car. Now we had a car and a truck. Okay. So that was the truck I started the business with. I bought an old welding machine from another Twinsburg guy who was in the excavating business, and it was kind of buried in his front yard and halfway in the mud. And that was a guy named Maisie. I don't know if you remember Bill Maisie.
I remember the name.
So I bought that for $200, and it had welding lead and a ground cable on it, and you had to hand crank it to start it. There was no battery starting on this thing, and it was pretty difficult. But that and $750, Betty and I went into business. And Betty was my partner right from the beginning, and we operated out of our home in Twinsburg, and we ran that company. It was called Park Iron Erectors. That came about because I had a very good friend who was in the fabricating business, and his company was called Park Iron and Welding, and his name was Simon Cadis, dear friend. And I went to Cy and I said, Simon, how do I start a business? And he was a graduate from Ohio State University. He was a metallurgist, ran a pretty nice fabricating business, and his exact words were, hell's fire. Jim, I can help you. Use the name Park Iron. I have all the insurance in place. I'm signatory with the iron workers, and get started. I even have some work to give you. So that was a big help to Betty and I, and we ran that company for about 18 months, and then I was able to buy 50% of the company we own today, Forest City Erectors, and that was 1961. We started Park Iron in 1959. So November the 11th, only a few 4 days away, I think, we'll have been in business 60 years.
Oh my gosh.
And so Forest City was a company that wasn't well known, wasn't doing very well. It was a struggle, and it took a couple of years to get it straightened out, and then we started to grow that company. And in 1970, I bought my 50% partner out, and actually that 50% ownership went to Betty. And Betty and I, again, were partners in Forest City Erectors. In 1978, I sold Betty 1% of Forest City Erectors, and she became the majority shareholder, and we became a WBE, a female-owned company, which helped us procure a lot of work in town. And the rest is history. We developed a pretty substantial business today, and through that business, I've been able to start other companies, which I'm proud to say that I took in other partners, and I helped a lot of young people get started and gave them the opportunity to buy those companies out. I can mention those if you you want.
Well, I think one of the things that you said, Jim, struck me, and that is and in our discussions, your focus on safety, because your company always seemed to do things the right way. And you were always concerned about your safety, obviously, and the safety of your workers. So tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, we're in the steel erection business. And when I joined the iron workers back in 1951, we didn't have a lot of safely implemented into the jobs. We didn't have OSHA. OSHA didn't come along until 1972. And OSHA designed all kinds of standards to help protect all the building trades and people in the automotive industry and other manufacturing facilities. You might have heard over the years from many, many people, that's a bad thing, OSHA.
Mm-hmm.
All they're going to do is cost us a lot of money. Well, I'm just the opposite. OSHA is a good thing. And they had the right, and our government had their plan in the right place, because we were losing an awful lot of people on construction projects. And it just took an effort, and it took some money, and it took some planning, and it took a lot of training. And I picked up on that, and I said, hey, one of our biggest costs is our workman's comp insurance and our other insurance. If we could stop the accidents, if we could get everybody to come to work healthy and go home the same way, we're going to be saving a lot of money. It makes sense. So Betty and I were willing to put the investment into buying the best equipment, training people, and implementing safety. I joined the National Erectors Association. I got involved with their safety committee. In the early 90s, we implemented what was called SENRAC to redo the rules of how we should perform on our projects and implement safety. Today, we tie just about everybody off with harnesses and safety equipment. We put cables on the beams so they can hook into and walk across. We use man lifts. You go on a job today, you'll see 10, 12, maybe even as many as 20 man lifts with guys working in a basket, okay, making the connection.
Mm-hmm. Jim, just for the edification of our audience, would you tell them exactly what Forest City Erectors does? And I know you've worked on some big jobs in Northeast Ohio.
Well, if you take a look at any large structure going up in, say, downtown Cleveland, for example, the football stadium where the Browns play 20-some years ago, big structural steel shell, a lot of trusses, a lot of columns, heavy steel that supports all the seating for the stands. And this is what Forest City does. We erect steel. We do the heavy structural steel. We do bar joists. We do metal decking. Anything that pertains to steel, even the miscellaneous and ornamental stairways, railings, balconies. We just recently renovated Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, which was the old Q.
Okay.
I don't know if you had a chance to see it, but it's now opened and all its fanfare. On that project, we did all the structural steel, and we also installed all the glass.
Okay.
And so we've expanded our business. We also do precast concrete. We also started a company 30-some years ago called Precast Services, which exclusively does precast concrete structures, parking garages, for example. Heavy concrete. Forest City also does that too. And we also have a company called Cleveland Crane Rental, where we rent cranes. Those are the cranes that we use for the most part on our projects. Any other questions like that?
Well, I think that explains to everyone what exactly the companies do. And it really all ties together because your companies make sense as a unit. And safety, I can tell, is kind of the common theme, particularly in precast and obviously in glass, I mean, that's got to be a very, very tricky area, and certainly would require a lot of safety.
Well, again, for your audience that's mainly around the greater Cleveland area, we did work on the Browns Stadium. We did work on the old Q when it was the Q. The new Hilton Hotel, all the structural steel on that. I'm sure a lot of people have been in the new convention center. 13,000 tons of structural steel underground. That was one of our projects.
Wow.
So to give you an idea of the size of the industry.
Right. And through all this, you have been an advocate for the worker. And in 2016, you received the Guardian Award, and you're in the Hall of Fame of the Construction Employers Association, which is a nice recognition.
That was a tremendous honor that I received, and it's hard to conceive that after 60 years in this business and how involved you get, that your peers do recognize that you've come a long ways, and it's really heartfelt. I really appreciate it, that award. I've been a member of the Construction Employers Association for close to 50 years. I was its president for a couple of years. I also was the president of the National Erectors Association out of Washington, D.C. And I've stayed very active with the associations because I think that's the basis of how we provide good trained labor, and we spend a lot of money on safety and training, and I think that's how we control the work that we manage to get all over the country.
You really have two lives, Jim. You have the work life, obviously, and then kind of a community life. And I know that you were very active in Rotary International. One of the things, and Mary and I were talking about this the other day, you were very strategic in the reverse raffles that Rotary used to hold every year. And we were talking about the fact that the night of the raffle, of course we had a band or a DJ in later years, and you and Betty would get out on the dance floor, and everybody would just move back and get out of the way, because when Jim and Betty were on the dance floor, you didn't want to compete, you wanted to watch and go, oh my gosh, how could they do that? So that was one of the things, one of the ways that you gave back, but one of the enjoyable ways that you and Betty were able to incorporate fun and a sense of well-being into some of the community groups that you helped along the way. I know you've been involved in other community organizations. I know you've also worked kind of behind the scenes with a number of groups, including the Historical Society, and one of your very good friends who passed away recently, Jim Karabat. And you, I know, were called upon frequently. And the two of you always did this behind the scenes, but it got done. And I think that's kind of one of yours and Jim's hallmarks is, you know, we don't want a lot of recognition, but let's get this done.
I think it's called just giving back. You can't always be on the taking side because it doesn't feel good. But when you give back, if you can, it feels really good. And it opens the eyes of a lot of other people that you associate with and deal with, and even your employees, they pick up on that. And we try to instill that in our employees too. Hey, it's not all about payday and going home and forgetting about everything else. You got to give back to your community. Get involved in the community. Betty and I really enjoyed doing that. One, moving to Twinsburg in 1957 was like a change in our life. We had no idea what Twinsburg was all about, but they were selling a home there for under $10,000, a brand new home. I don't know if you remember that, called Glenwood Acres. And Betty and I had $1,000 saved up, and we needed $500 down, and that was the only place that we could find that bargain. So we went there and we bought a house in Twinsburg and knew nothing about the community. It was just affordable. But we found out in a short time that what a great community. People come together, people work together, and we kind of just felt like we were helping grow that community. It's, to my estimation, it's one of the best there is yet today. And so I always felt like you have to give back, because I think a lot of our success came out of being in Twinsburg.
Let's talk about success a little bit. Jim, what's your definition of success?
Wow. I think, let me see, I think real serious about that. I get up in the morning feeling good, and I want to go to work. And I want to be able to accomplish what I set out to do. And by doing that, that would be pretty much my definition. I feel very successful. And it makes me want to get up tomorrow and do the same thing all over again. It's nice to be able to say, oh, I laughed all the way to the bank. That's not always the case. There was a lot of ups and downs in our business, a lot of sad times. And I mean, times where we thought, we're just not going to make it. We prayed a lot, and we continued to get up the next morning, even not knowing where we were going to go, but went someplace to keep turning, and things got better. So I don't know how you can measure success. There's not a yardstick or a ruler for it, but I think it's, do you feel good about what you do?
Right. And if you feel good about yourself, you feel good about others and situations, and I think that's all very helpful.
I believe it is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a motivator.
Let's talk a little bit about a couple of strategies for success that you've used over the years and we've talked about. And it really ties into everything that you've said so far. And the first one that we talked about was treat people the way you want to be treated.
Well, you know what, that the story there is Betty and I, who we worked together in our office and took care of the kids. Betty made sure that they went off to school and that their lunches were taken care of, and we had dinner. And I remember her and I we tried to get out at least one evening a week, the two of us, and we'd pick on a very nice restaurant. And this was early on when we were still talking about starting the business. And Betty said to me, Jim, what do you think you can do that's going to make a difference in helping us grow this business? And I mean, the answer just popped right out. I said, Betty, the people that come to work for us, I'm going to treat them like I wanted to be treated for the people that I performed for. And I wasn't getting that warm, fuzzy treatment. I want those people to feel like they found a home and that we're all one big family. And if we can instill that, all the other things will come together.
And obviously they have. And you still feel that way today.
I do. And we operate as a family. Of course, we have, we started out very small, 2-3 people working on a small job. And, today it's not unusual for us to have 300 to 350 people when times are really popping. We do a lot of work for the steel mills in town, and we do a lot of maintenance work. And like today, just for an example, we have like 60 people working around the clock down at ArcelorMittal for probably the next 5 days. They call on us for maintenance work, and I know that all those guys are going to show up. It's raining today. They're out there working. They're not looking to go home. They're well protected. They're safe. We keep giving them dry clothes as soon as their other clothes get wet. And the mill will open up in 5 days and go back to work on their projects, and everybody's happy.
We've already talked about getting involved in your community. And this one I think is really neat, and you've alluded to this a little bit. And that is, work is important, but have a social life and have fun.
Well, you know, we can all get up every morning and go to work and like what we do. Once that's out of the way, you have to have some plan for your evening, okay? You know, you mentioned Betty and I love to dance. Well, dancing was something that spurred us to do the next thing, okay? Gave you the energy to help you get up the next morning and go out. I had wives tell me that, what am I going to do? Freddie comes home, has dinner, and the first thing he does, he lays on the couch and wants to watch TV, and he falls asleep there, and I have to wake him up, put him to bed. And so I started a program with all my guys, and I said, hey, look, you know, there's more to just sleeping and going to work. Why don't you get involved in your community? Why don't you try going to a council meeting? You'll enjoy it. Listen to what's going on in your community. Get involved in the school. You got kids in the school, go there and find out what's going on there. Take part. Get on a committee. And I did some training, and the guys all accepted that. And it was interesting, after about 16 weeks of that training, the wives would call me up and say, what did you do to my husband? He is so active. He's put a garden in. He's taking the kids here. He's taking the kids there. He's not sitting in front of the TV. That's part of the social.
One of the things too, Jim, and this just really quickly, is you always do the right thing, and you're always so very positive. Regardless of the situation, you always have a smile on your face. You're always so genial. You treat everyone royally. And we have to stop there because we're just about out of time. But it's an honor to be your friend.
Well, God bless you. This I enjoyed very much talking to you. We need to do this more often.
We do.